I think it's interesting. The president just said something which is that on the day after the attack, he went in the Rose Garden and said that this was an act of terror. That's what I said. You said in the Rose Garden, the day after the attack, it was an act of terror. It was not a spontaneous demonstration. Is that what you're saying?
Please proceed, Governor.
I want to make sure we get that for the record, because it took the president 14 days before he called the attack in Benghazi an act of terror.
This morning, you went out of your way to avoid the use of the word terrorism in connection with the Libya attack. Right. Do you believe that this was a terrorist attack?
Well, it's too early to know exactly how this came about, what group was involved. Get the transcript.
He did, in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of terror.
Can you say that a little louder, Candy?
This morning, you went out of your way to avoid the use of the word terrorism in connection with the Libya attack. Right. Do you believe that this was a terrorist attack?
Well, it's too early to know exactly how this came about, what group was involved. Get the transcript.
He did, in fact, sir. So let me call it an act of terror.
Can you say that a little louder, Candy?
This morning, you went out of your way to avoid the use of the word terrorism in connection with the Libya attack. Right. Do you believe that this was a terrorist attack?
Well, it's too early to know exactly how this came about, what group was involved.
It's been described as a mob action, but there are reports that they were very heavily armed with grenades.
As I
that
said,
doesn't sound like your normal demonstration.
Right. As I said, we're still investigating exactly what happened.
He did call it an act of terror. It did as well take 2 weeks or so for the whole idea of there being a riot out there about this tape to come out. You're correct about that.
It's been described as a mob action, but there are reports that they were very heavily armed with grenades.
As I
that
said,
doesn't sound like your normal demonstration.
Right. As I said, we're still investigating exactly what happened.
The administration indicated that this was a reaction to a video and was a spontaneous reaction.
They did.
It took them a long time to say this was a terrorist act by a terrorist group. And to suggest, am I incorrect in that regard? On Sunday, your secretary, the ambassador of the United Nations, went on the Sunday television shows and spoke about how this was a spontaneous reaction.
On the anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, Americans and American symbols in 2 Arab countries tonight are under attack by radical Islamist forces, and someone at the American consulate in Benghazi is dead. Unclear if that
was. We're not aware of any actionable intelligence indicating that an attack on the U.S. mission in Benghazi was planned or imminent. This is not a case of protests directed at the United States.
It began spontaneously.
We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies.
Sparked by this hateful video.
Over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with.
Protests that arose because of the outrage over the video.
This video is disgusting.
Disgusting and reprehensible.
Where there is an offensive video or cartoon.
There was a hateful video.
This is in response to a video that is offensive.
You don't really believe that?
Chris, absolutely I believe that, because in fact it's the case.
They weren't there to demonstrate about some obscure film.
As Leon Panetta said, it was obviously a terrorist attack.
The government there saying that they had warned the United States about the situation in Benghazi and that it was deteriorating.
Days before the attack, there were warnings about insufficient security in Benghazi.
Chris Stevens was the first U.S. ambassador killed in more than 30 years.
Said in the months before his death, he talked about being worried about the never-ending security threats.
I don't know how you argue we weren't caught flat-footed.
Specifically about the rise in Islamic extremism and growing al-Qaeda presence.
It leads to questions.
Does it make any sense to you the level of, or the small level of security he apparently had with him?
The White House story crumbling.
I would say yes. They were killed in the course of a terrorist attack.
Hillary Clinton admitted that al-Qaeda was involved.
It wasn't just a mob action.
He said, it is self-evident
that what happened in Benghazi was a terrorist attack.
What happened in Benghazi was a terrorist attack.
U.S. officials knew within 24 hours that this was an organized al-Qaeda attack,
which said the U.S. government knew about al-Qaeda's involvement within 24 hours of the attack.
In the intelligence community, there are those who within the first 24 hours were saying this was a terrorist attack.
Why did Ambassador Rice give the American people bad information?
There is more proof that this was all part of an elaborate cover-up by the administration.
It's either gross incompetence and negligence, or in fact they are lying.
The president has a big investment in the narrative that not only is Osama dead, but al-Qaeda is finished.
And some of these militias are affiliated with al-Qaeda.
Al-Qaeda is very much alive. Clear that al-Qaeda is alive and well.
Bin Laden dead, al-Qaeda alive.
I was pretty certain, and continue to be pretty certain, that there are going to be bumps in the road.